Moving on to our next guest, though. Today marks 4 years since the World Health Organization first called COVID-19 a pandemic. God, you believe that's 4 years ago now? The country's first epicenter was New York and the New Jersey area.
The award-winning book, Corona City, chronicles what life was like in those first few months, sharing photos and personal stories. We're talking to the producer of the audiobook version, Walker Vreeland. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What made you think that people would want to relive all that?
Oh, it's a really good question. I think it is an example of the best that we can be. Because when the you-know-what hits the fan, people come together. And it was extraordinary. And I was in New York during 9/11 as well. And I witnessed how people, it was unlike anything else. People, you feel it in the air. And it was the same during the pandemic. You felt this kindness in the air and this support for one another at a time when people were unbelievably isolated and really, really scared.
So this book details a lot of different perspectives. Someone who survived COVID, first responders. But for the audiobook, you said you had to cast all these different actors to really get those stories to sound the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, we decided to cast a different narrator per story. So that was 63 voice actors we were working with. It's a lot.
And what's the most compelling story that comes to the top of your mind that surprised you, maybe?
Well, one small detail that never left my mind was in a story by Maureen Bowe. And she was a nurse working in one of the hospitals during the pandemic. And one of her fellow nurses became sick herself, was hospitalized for 8 weeks. And on the day that she was finally well enough to be discharged and she was wheeling herself out of the hospital, the entire staff got together and began singing Rise Up. I mean, it's like out of a movie, you know? It's like unbelievable. All of a sudden we were dealing with, everything was new and everything was unfamiliar. Another one that comes to mind is a story by Karen Phelps called The Days the World Changed. She just talks about simply being in line at the grocery store and for the first time seeing the cashier as a first responder, not a first responder, but an essential worker, and thanking them for their service. Everything was, it was like all new rules. And one more lighthearted story by Katie Tarta called Pants Off, which is all about how, you know, beginning with the pandemic, we all were just existing in close-up. Like everyone was just a 3/4 shot, and therefore pants became unnecessary.
That's true.
And that's kind of carried into today a little bit. In fact, I'm not wearing any pants right now.
You wonder what changes are here forever. Which ones did we try out, maybe not so like, as if you looked at the big picture on that?
Exactly. I mean, education, I think, is now changed forever. You know, you have a snow day, and kids immediately know that they're going to have a remote learning day. And that is now, and especially with people who work from home. I work from home. I have my own production company. And so it's just normal now, and it's kind of opened the world up, but it's also closed it. We're all sort of more isolated at the same time.
It's so weird to look at these pictures now, because I know it was like this in Chicago too. Just
haunting.
Just nothing on the streets of New York. You know, it's
really,
just something.
Really eerie. I mean, any time that a metropolis as big as New York or Chicago shuts down, it's like. It's eerie. You're looking at a city in its most unnatural state, you know, and it's just something. And then I don't know if this happened here. One thing I will never forget, because I was living in Washington Heights at the time, every night at 7 p.m. during the transition of the essential workers going from day shift to night shift, everyone opened their windows and grabbed pots and pans and banged on them and cheered and went on their roofs and just, just to support the essential workers. It gives me chills to this day. And it was unbelievable. I mean, that's what I mean about feeling it in the air. And it was so moving. It was so moving. It made me proud to be a New Yorker at that time. And it also just made me proud of humanity showing up for one another.
Well, it's fascinating. For more, you can check out LorraineAsh.com or follow Corona City on social media and WalkerVreelandProductions.com. And 100% of the proceeds donated?
Yes, to Feeding America.
That's great. Walker,
Yeah.
thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
For having me.
Time for Round Top.